minutes to make sure we get all of our attendees here in the room, but I'm very excited to start this round of webinar series from the Moon Village Association. So there is a Q&A that you can use in your Zoom to ask different questions to our speakers, or any open questions that you may want to ask even to the crowd to start, so to speak, a little debate. But yeah, so this is the first episode of the Moon Village Association webinar series, discussing, in this case, Artemis Science and Industry. So what we're going to have today is two very well-known speakers in the realm of space industry and space science. And first and foremost, we're going to get the opening remarks from the president of the Moon Village Association, Giuseppe Ribaldi. So Giuseppe, please, the floor is yours.
All right. So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, hopefully around the world. So welcome to this first, let's say, episode of the webinars, Back to the Moon. Many of you, I would say the majority of you, have not been around when the Apollo mission took place in the 60s, but I had the pleasure to be around. And I think one of the goals of this webinar is to bring to the public the excitement of what does it mean, basically exploring the moon. Therefore, we would like to give a small contribution in this direction. The Moon Village Association, whom I am the founder and president, is a non-governmental organization founded in 2017, which is legally registered in Vienna. And the goal of the Moon Village Association is to act as a platform, bringing together multi-stakeholder like country, space agency, international organization, industry, academia, and of course, last but not least, of course, the public. So we are a unique organization, and certainly the largest and most complete. We have an active role in the United Nations, COPUOS, where being a permanent observer, we are able to bring issues and hopefully also a solution to some of basically the development which are taking place. The moon is to some extent a blank piece of paper where we all together, we have to write how to behave. And so the MVA is indeed active in many activities, going from the lunar governments to the cultural, to the economics, as well to the science. And so today is an excellent example of the capacity of the Moon Village Association. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank, of course, Borja and of course the speaker today for initiating to be the first. As I said, the goal of this webinar is starting referring to Artemis, because as I hope all of you know, Artemis II has been a tremendous success. So today we are going to be on board a little bit of Artemis II with one of the speakers, and then we will be looking also to the industry. But the future webinar, by the way, we like to hear your comments at the end of this webinar. The continuation of this is going to continue, of course, on Artemis, but we are going to deal with all other major programs. So hopefully in the future we will have also from China, speaker from China, from India, and from any other part of the world. So with that, I would like again to thank all the organizers, and of course Glavki, which has been all organizing all the practical implementation. And I give back the floor to you, Borja, to moderate this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for those great words. So today we have two speakers. We have Satoru Kurosu and we have Professor Joseph Borg. So Satoru Kurosu is one of the key strategists sitting at the intersection of industrial technology and the emerging lunar economy. He is the CEO of Cross Space and Sustainability and a Moon Market Development Coordinator and Industry Working Group leader at the Moon Village Association, where he also serves on the board. Before turning to space, Satoru spent decades in industry, serving as Director and Executive Vice President of Yokogawa Electric until 2019. After studying at the International Space University, he helped create Yokogawa's first dedicated space business development office in 2021, working on International Space Station business, satellite remote sensing, and lunar and planetary development. Very importantly for today's Back to the Moon discussion, his work connects companies like Yokogawa into Artemis programs to develop the control platform for Toyota's manned pressurized rover or lunar cruiser and the broad Moon Village Association ecosystem. He brings a partner's view of how established industries can help build a sustainable lunar economy rather than speaking from a single mission or company perspective. Satoru, very happy to have you here. As well, it's my pleasure to introduce our other speaker, Professor Joseph Borg. Joseph is a professor at the University of Malta and a leading space biologist whose work has helped put Malta on the map in space biotechnology. Trained as a molecular geneticist and biomedical scientist, he has built a career at the interface of fundamental genetics, clinical medicine, and space. His research focuses on how our genes and cells respond when we take biology off the planet, especially the KLF1 gene and hemoglobin switching, which are highly relevant for conditions such as beta thalassemia and sickle cell disease. Through the MALEF and SpaceOmics programs, his team has flown Maltese experiments to the International Space Station, contributing to the SpaceOmics and Medical Atlas, and several high-impact papers in Nature family of journals. Joseph has also taken part in the science around flagship commercial missions, including Space Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian orbital flight, and the FRAM2 mission, which carried his space style and MELIT investigations in a pioneering polar orbit. His collaborations range from NASA and ESA to Weill Cornell Medicine, Ottawa Hospital Research Institute, and Florida State University, all working together to link astronaut health with new therapies for patients on Earth. In today's session, he will bring that perspective to our theme of going back to the moon, showing how Artemis-era missions open a new chapter, not just for exploration, but for biology and medicine. Please join me in welcome Professor Joseph Borg. Okay, so Satoru and Giuseppe, again, I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm going to start with an opening big picture for both of you. So Satoru, I'll take your impression first. So Artemis II is often described as a bridge between Apollo and a sustained lunar presence. From your perspective, what made Artemis II scientifically and technologically different from previous human space missions, especially for industry?
Yeah, so excuse me. Thank you very much for a kind introduction. So my name is Satoru Kurosu. I'm joining from industry side, and let me start talking about the Apollo. I was again the Apollo age, and when I was a child, I looked at the Apollo 11 landing live in the Thailand when my father had got a job as a plant manager in Thailand, and so I was there, and I look at that together with the Thai colleagues. So it was interesting, experience. And this time, Artemis II bring open the new age of human exploration for us, because last time, frankly speaking, the aim of Apollo, our goal was to compete with Russia and achieve the human landing earlier than that. So it was achieved, but at the same time, after it was achieved, so they started to losing public interest. Then I finished earlier back I think 1972, several years earlier than that. And after that, we didn't have anything for almost about the 50 years or 45 years, and again, the United States declared Artemis plan, I think back in 2017, I guess. So, but for this time, it's clear that humans stay on the moon. So from industry point of view, this is very interesting because we need to create infrastructures to sustain human presence. And if we talk about the long-term stay, we need to utilize possibly the resources on the moon. We call the ISRU, Institute Resource Utilization. So looking at and thinking about this type of, the change of industrialization, we need various companies with a various field or various experts. So this also means that the lunar or the moon will not be for the selected few or selected, I mean, if I may say, athlete, that everybody, all the experts and everybody, including the children who are young but to grow as an industry expert, can have a chance to go to the moon. This is exciting start of a new area.
Wow, I love that global view position that you have, Satoru. That's awesome. So, Joseph, same question for you from your perspective. What made Artemis II scientifically, especially, we want that vision of yours, different from previous human space missions?
Yes. First of all, thank you, Borja, and the whole team at the Moon Village Association. Very interesting and exciting to be working on such topics. I can hear.
We have a hot mic. Let me mute Giuseppe. There he goes.
Of course,
Sorry about that.
I was not, how to say, lucky enough to be born and witness the accomplishments in the 1960s and 70s of the Apollo program. But of course, I was very always intrigued and very passionate to read about such missions done by NASA and also the Russian space programs in the 60s and 70s. And then indeed, just like Satoru said, right? So there was a long wait in a way for humans to return to the moon. So now that humans actually did go to the moon and back as part of Artemis II, and also just before that in Artemis 1, also some very interesting experiments carrying life science experiments on board. All of this has a renewed interest for the, I wouldn't say the next generation of scientists, but the current generation of scientists, young and old, from academia and industry, and hoping to understand once more the challenges of going to the moon and back. And of course, we also know that the moon is at least 3 or 4 days away from rocket space travel. And we know that this is a stepping stone or platform for future or deeper space missions. So whereas the Apollo program was very much moon-based only, we now know that the Artemis is trying to make the next step, a serious step of having a foundation on the moon and plan the next steps for Mars and beyond. So just by seeing this and even by participating in small parts of the program is a very exciting part in its own way. So I'm very, how to say, excited and eager to see the next Artemis missions that are happening very soon. So I'm pleased to see that the momentum is a very fast momentum, I would say, after such a long wait from the 70s. And I cannot wait to see many different people with different backgrounds coming into the program, whether it is pure science, engineering, even maybe design and architectural kind of science and art, which we all need these people to form part of this mission. So we're very excited. I am very excited.
Awesome. Awesome, Joseph. So I'll stay with you for a second. So if you had to explain to a non-specialist
Yeah.
why Artemis era science matters, even for companies on Earth, what is the simplest way you will frame that value?
So first of all, one has to appreciate, right, that to go out of Earth, which people and agencies have been doing for quite some time now, for many years. And as we know, it requires overcoming hurdles and challenges. So going into space is not like getting a cab or a bus and going to the next town or traveling by plane to a different country, it has an extra layer of challenge that needs to be overcome. I think in the process of having astronauts or missions planned and designed and going to space, in the process, in the journey, there are many lessons that are learned, and some of which, not everything, but some of which can be applied back here to Earth, maybe in the context of being efficient, maybe in the context of having miniaturized point of care testing, small devices, real time testing. I think all of this we know that have been developed specifically for space purposes or astronauts who are spending time days away out of Earth in a confined space and with limited resources. And we find ourselves here on Earth, whether we're talking about remote places or we're talking about places where there was an unfortunate event, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, or other disasters, and you require important healthcare provision, medical science to be done on site in real time and giving back data and sharing that data from one site across country or across continent. So all of these challenges that we do or we design and plan for space ultimately also end up being utilized and exploited on Earth. So I think the science matters a lot. And ultimately, because we've been sending rovers and probes and non-human type of hardware, if you like, to Moon, and also with a fair degree of success to Mars as well. But of course, now what is very, very exciting from my end, because I come from the biomedical science field, so that's my main area of interest, is the challenges posed not just from Earth to low Earth orbit to ISS, and a person is working within the confinement of the ISS, but going to the Moon and essentially the science of life, right? How it is affected by the space flight, by the lunar environment, maybe the occasional radiation bursts or radiation environment encountered on the Moon. Uh, all of this will affect the science of life, whether it is the biochemistry, physiology, genetics or epigenetics, we call this, right? So how the environment changes oneself. Now, the beautiful part of all this is that we do not have extensive data of people traveling to the Moon, staying there for weeks, maybe months. So all of the work that we're going to see in the coming years is going to be frontier research. It is all excellent kind of science that we hope to do. So by being part in all this, I mean the science of Artemis and the Artemis missions themselves matter really a lot.
Wow, I love that answer. And especially as well as a space scientist myself, I like to, very interested, especially what's going to happen once we go beyond low Earth orbit, especially with those increased amount of radiation to living organisms. Probably we could talk about that for hours. But for now, Satoru, similar question to you.
Yeah.
If you have to explain to a non-specialist why Artemis era science matter for companies on Earth, especially from that industry perspective that you bring, what's the simplest way that you will frame that value?
Yeah, I keep saying that Moon is the proving ground for sustainable technology for Earth. So I came to this kind of a short world because I faced already challenges to convince the most critical people. I mean, executive of a corporation. By the way, I was a chief sustainability officer of Yokoga Electric Corporation, which is sales is about $4 billion and employees about 17,000. So when I created the permanent space development organization back in 2021, I need to convince my colleague of executive and why we move. Of course, we get the order and make a profit. This is a must. But since I was a CSO of Yokogawa, so I was very keen. What kind of technology, what kind of a solution can really help, the solving problems on the Earth. And I came to the point that on the Earth, we totally rely on biosphere or nature. When a human emit carbon dioxide, it will automatically come back by the plant and the field, and also the water is recycling by the vaporizer and the rain and so. But there is no biosphere, no nature on the moon. So how we can survive that? We need to recycle, reuse, and also reduce. So this is a kind of a real, the test bed for ideal 3R technologies. And especially now to bring something from the Earth to the moon costs you about $1 million per kilos. So we need to be very conscious to, sustain not only sustain presence, but also sustain economic, activities. So I would say that this is ideal proving ground for sustainable technology for us too.
Amazing answer, Satoru. Yes, it's so interesting how many processes that we take for granted here on Earth, they are not present right now in space station, right? So we need to develop everything, as you said. And Satoru, I'm going to stay with you for this next question. And this is very, I guess, up-to-date question. So just days before this webinar, I think everybody saw on May 28th, Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket was catastrophically destroyed on a very explosive fire at Launch Pad 36 in Kennedy Space Center, with significant damage to the launch pad, which is the only one that actually Blue Origin operates. Given that New Glenn is intended launch vehicle for the Blue Moonlander, which is a cornerstone for NASA Artemis architecture, how do you think this is going to reshape the near-term roadmap for returning humans to the moon?
Yeah, actually, it was quite unfortunate. The Blue Origin is normally very steady. The improve technology and make the achievement that it happened. But on the other hand, rocket is very rocket hard. So this is a famous word of Elon. And what happened in Japan is it's kind of let's say not so good because the JAXA has now a new rocket H3. And then we had several issues and we stopped launching for months because, this is a government organization, national organization, and they need to explain to all the taxpayers or the stakeholders what are the real root cause. And until they found the real cause, they stopped. And then actually tomorrow, they relaunch the H3 series. I hope, I'm fingers crossed that. But in case of the NASA's Artemis program, they have two, if I may say, competitors like the Starship and also Blue Moon. And I hope this is different from national, the pure government type of thing, commercial, the investment and commercial innovations. Will improve the downtime to keep the time short to start launching. And I believe that this kind of, I say, healthy competition will make, the speed of development. And I do hope that reduce the transportation cost to the moon. I'm still optimistic. Of course, it's a tragedy and it takes time, and also I guess engineers work day and night, but I believe the innovation of these commercial companies.
Awesome, Satoru. Thank you very much for those words. And it looks like there were some words from Blue Origin this morning that they are going to attempt to launch something by the end of this year, which is remarkable speed from their side. So, Joseph, let's rephrase that question, but more scientifically. Do you think this mishap on this explosion is going to have any effect on the science for the Artemis program.
So for sure, I echo what Satoru just said, right? And I mean, in the context of the launch itself and the explosion that happened, I mean, it will undoubtedly have a strong impact on the pathway, on the engineering processes, and I'm not sure how much time it will take, but it will take some serious effort, money, and investigation to get to the bottom of it. Perhaps from an, I wouldn't say egoistic point of view, but from a science point of view, even though or despite this catastrophic event, the science per se that is currently being prepared, designed, and intended for the moon, it doesn't really affect. Because I mean, as you might know, or for those who are scientists per se, right? I mean, time in general is of essence, and the more you perfection the design of the experiment, maybe the hardware, maybe the testing, there can never be enough testing done on ground, right? So with the additional time being spent on Earth in the lab on ground, from a scientific point of view, it is never time wasted. On the contrary, knowing that such how do you say, pitfalls exist or malfunctions exist and a rocket explodes, I mean, from a scientific point of view, I feel more comfortable that the tests, and even with the occasional unfortunate event of an exploded rocket, but if, on the other hand, you have a dedicated payload that costs 20 million, $50 million, which is not a little, and that is going on a rocket launch and destined for the moon. I mean, if you look at it the other way around, it is perhaps a necessary evil to have these problems that occur on Earth, but then with that problem, they are perfectioned more. There are more redundancy, more tests. Then that is more assurance for the scientists who are hand delivering the payload to the agency, to the supplier, to the how do you say, company. In this case, it's Blue Origin. And I conclude with what Satoru said. I mean, Blue Origin is one main and important company, but there are others as well, which makes for that competitive edge, which I think is always nice. I also note, right? I note, for example, how companies work. So maybe there's this element of Starship and SpaceX having a much faster turnaround time, with the obviously high probability of failure also being evident, but perhaps at the expense of failing faster, you can perhaps achieve faster success, right? Whereas on the other hand, if you take a longer period of time to prepare and then launch, sometimes it works very well, and sometimes, unfortunately, not. So I think these different operating mechanisms for us in science, it is actually good to have, good to see, so that we are able to choose and to see which ones will make it to the moon. Ultimately, I am pretty sure that going to the moon and having science to the moon will not be a monopoly of some sort, but there will be a number of players, of key names participating in this whole journey. So I think all in all, it will not stop or affect negatively the science, surely.
Okay, Joseph. So talking back about science, beyond any single experiment that happened in Artemis II, what do you think are the most important biological or medical questions that this mission started to answer about how humans operate in deep space?
Yes. So I think there are a fair amount of standard measurements that NASA and other agencies do on astronauts. And the Artemis missions are no exception, right? So all of these important parameters to test and look at bodily changes or adaptations, maybe scans or tests done before the astronauts launch. The same goes for Artemis. So on a personal level, and because as Spaceomics and as a group, we work heavily on blood science. So we are very excited to see the effects of long duration. If not long duration, I think it would be more the equivalent of deep space, because long travel would be a fair amount of days into the mission, right? But we know that deep space affects the body, more so affects blood, and in the context of blood, it is interesting for the audience to hear that for instance, so here on Earth, humans produce 2 billion red cells. Sorry, 2 million red cells, 2 million red cells. And they are also destroyed every second at the same time. So they are in a balance, But in space, humans and astronauts lose 1 million red cells more. So they lose 3 million red cells. And only 2 million are produced. So we have 30 trillion red blood cells. So these 2 million red cells or the 1 million less is not going to have a huge impact in a short turnaround time, but it will have an impact when astronauts and humans will spend time longer in space, possibly on the moon, for weeks or months on end. And there is a term called space anemia. So the astronauts or the humans become anemic. So this could be a serious problem, because all of a sudden you have a lack of capability of carrying oxygen in your own body to deliver oxygen to tissues, to organs. So these blood parameters, these hemoglobin levels, these count of red cells and other cells such as immune-based cells, these are very important, I would say critical. So these are the kind of tests that are currently being looked at in great detail. I also know that the astronauts in Artemis II took with them very interesting cell experiments, the so-called organoids on chip, and looking at how these cells behave in an organ fashion as well. So sometimes it is not easily to test the biology of a whole organ of an astronaut, because we are living humans after all. But here on Earth, we are capable of growing or culturing organ tissues, such as liver, bone marrow, or other niches, right? And because we can grow these successfully, these can also be exposed to these longer duration or deeper space missions, such as Artemis II. So there are some very, very exciting tests and experiments being done that we hope to see, important results from them. I think all in all, these kind of tests and these kind of results, because they are life science based, they will not determine, they will assist in the successive missions as part of Artemis 3, Artemis 4, and so forth. So I think based on important data that we observe on astronauts, because the astronauts themselves are also clinical models, right? And also the experiments that they take with them, I think the successive missions that will come after Artemis 2 will benefit greatly from such data that emerge.
That's amazing answer. I could have like a million follow-ups. To be honest with you, I have one quick follow-up with that. So I know, especially because this is the N of 3, right? Like 4 different astronauts took part on the organoid experiment. Is this something that is going to be replicated in upcoming Artemis mission to get, so to speak, a bigger depth of the field, or is this just, I don't know if you can talk about it or not, but I just thought I'd ask.
I don't think there are experiment mission details disclosed, right, in Artemis 3. But I'm pretty sure that finally, human bioscience and space bioscience is getting a lot of attention, which is very, very, how do you say, heartwarming, right, to see. Because for many years of not being the center point or center of attention, I think now we realize that if we want humans to be part of the process and living on the moon for a long period of time, alongside droids and rovers, human safety and human science has to be on top of the agenda. I would say that on the experiments done on Artemis II, I think lessons will be learned and we'll see what kind of results come back. I would be very surprised if there will not be follow-up and build-up on these experiments. So I can only seeing it going further and more ambitious in this kind of program. So at least I will be vocal in that part as well.
Awesome, Joseph. So Satoru, very similar question, but from an industry standpoint. So what did Artemis II show us about the readiness of space as a platform for serious R&D, not just demonstrations?
Yeah, looking at the whole Artemis program. So as for example, last week, moon base plan was revealed, and they have a very concrete the roadmaps. So this helps us to understand the timing of the readiness of all the technologies. But on the other hand, so when I was involved in the development of regarding Yokogawa is a process automation company. We have a variety of technologies and measurement, a variety of sensors and controller, and also IT. So the interesting, we have all the technology ready, on the Earth, and all the technologies. But this is for industry grade. And to control the plant on a critical plant like oil and gas and chemical and pharmaceutical, you name that. So to operate this kind of plant with all the sensing technologies 24/7 and 10 years without stopping the plant. So we are not just transforming these technologies for the space use. And of course, it's not easy because of radiation is actually biggest headache for the electric company. But once we can understand using the radiation-proof parts, I think we can keep going. So luckily, function-wise, we have there. So we don't have to create the things from scratch from industry point of view. But we need to understand the emission requirement and also the environment, especially almost nobody had experience to have the real serious industry, the equipment after the Apollo. So we need to think and simulate what could be the environment. But once we have experience, I think we can keep moving our products into the real mission. And also, in case of Japan, we have the fund called Space Strategy Fund to grow the technologies. And Yokogawa is one of the consortium led by University of Tokyo. So they are now developing an instrument to be used by astronaut of Artemis 4. 3 is postponed. So we are not just R&D, but also we have a target mission thanks to the clear roadmap of Artemis program.
Amazing, Satoru. So you mentioned that a lot of the technology is, so to speak, ready, right? But I would like to ask, what are the biggest practical barriers that you think companies face if they actually want to participate in Artemis-related science today? And how might those be reduced over the next few years?
Do you mean technically or commercially?
Both technically and commercially. Vision
Okay.
will be great.
Yeah. So as I said, from electric companies, biggest headache is radiation-proof the production, because now there are kind of radiation-proof products. So the list of that. so that we like a JAXA had and NASA had. So this is it. So we replace that. But frankly speaking, this is a very much proven part, meaning that if I may say, old and big. So we need to, adopt this kind of old and the low performance parts and achieve the performance with the limited mass. This is a challenge, but this is all technical challenges. But once we have sensors, laser sensor to sense carbon dioxide, oxygen. So we have that, we completed, and we converted to the radiation-proof instruments. And not all the parts are listed on the radiation-proof parts list, of course. Then we need to test the unlisted parts, and it costs us about $300,000 or $4,000 per each part, and it takes time. So it's very painful. So it's time consuming, and also but technology is there. So it's just a matter of headache of the engineers and also the time consuming. But from the commercial point of view, so the biggest hurdle is long-term return on investment. So because the emission, the number of emission is practically not so big. And I'm excited to see the moon-based plan. It's much bigger than the traditional, the missions. But however, so I was a corporate executive, the board of directors. So every day I got the proposal from all the organizations that please let me spend $1 million and $10 million, $100 million to create this. And then I keep asking question, when do you get the money back? So if they gave me the answer at 10 years, I just kill that. So immediately. So this is how, because I'm not saying that I'm supporting only the short-term, the return, the product and the project, but this is a competition. We need to compete with the other competitors and also the leap with the profit. And then if I have 10 projects, will be 2 years return, 1 year's return, I have to choose most of the short-term return and just bet one of maybe 100. So there are interesting technology, interesting thing, and if we invest a long time, some project will pay back. But it's very difficult for all the other space mission is not really the short term. This is a very practical, the issue. But after I am not, involved in a board type of responsibility, I know how they think about the.
Yeah, right. It's almost like
yes, yes.
yeah, you basically need the money, right, to create a product. So the product that you first create, you need a return on investment to be able to, so to speak, put that money back into your next experiment, right? So it's almost like it's very, very tricky situation. So I appreciate your.
That is another reason why I keep insisting to, if I develop something for the extreme environmental space, this should be beneficial for the Earth. Then we can create the circle, not only just a special, space, but this special can create the flagship type of thing to advance the ordinary product. So I have this kind of lot of tricks which can convince the board members.
Absolutely, and I love what you guys mentioned, that everything developed for space has to have a use on Earth. So that's something actually like we discussed at our agriculture working group here in the MBA, that any plan that you create to be able to grow in space eventually will be a better plan fitted to grow on extreme environments here on Earth. But very similar to on that topic, Joseph, like, how do you see the knowledge from Artemis II feeding into those concrete applications on Earth, for example, in drug development, radiation medicine, or even personalized healthcare, as you were mentioning?
In fact, I noticed a question in the Q&A by someone, Mario Escobar, and he actually asked that specific question of how Artemis II and others can help in drug development or space medicine, etc. So first of all, to set the expectations right. So these Artemis missions, which are crewed flights, either to the moon, around the moon, and back, and eventually touch down to the moon as well. I do not think that those specific missions will be having their drug development experiments as a main project. However, and I would say this because of the limited kind of resources that they are handling or dealing with. I mean, primarily it is a human-based performance mission, right? And I would still say that the best kind of biomedical science experiments that these Artemis missions are doing are the astronauts themselves, and maybe the health profiles and testing done on their blood, on their brain health and cognitive tests, etc., etc. When it comes to drug development and drug testing, etc., I think that there can be some form of pilot projects, proof of concepts. So we know that there are a number of companies or academic institutions performing protein crystallizations of certain drugs in space. So by looking at different setups, different settings, I think this topic will become more and more important, because I had this question once a while back by people who work in the pharmaceutical industry or sector. So it's like, eventually, when people will travel to the moon and will be staying on the moon, we'll be seeing one of two things, right? They will either bring with them baggages or boxes of medicines and drugs. Ultimately, there must be some sort of way how medicines can be manufactured on site, in orbit, or on the moon. So these are very, very important questions and challenges that I think using and exploiting the Artemis program and Artemis mission, one can conduct these small proof of concept trials, maybe some form of drug assays or some pharmacogenetic profiling. Uh, Maybe I would say that the very first kind of in-space manufacturing might be some form of genetic engineering or biotechnology, where you can overexpress or produce drugs that are already in use, such as insulin and other factors, no? That right now here on Earth we can use them as injectables and use them for therapeutic purposes. So I would think that overexpressing a particular protein or factor or gene product, I think those would be low-hanging fruit and the first to be done. More extensive and more complex drug manufacturing, I think it will take some time. But I think Artemis can be responsible in carrying the hardware, conducting tests in flight and also on site on the moon. And ultimately, Artemis would be that kind of program which is sort of building the bits and pieces and the necessary infrastructure to have, I'm going to invent or fire from the hip here, maybe there will be the first pharmacy on the moon, right? Or the first pharmaceutical habitat on the moon, where if something goes wrong within the group, the community, they know that they can go to the medical center or pharmacy on the moon. I mean, we might smile, but I seriously think it is a very important thing to have on the moon as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And actually, I think this is maybe a tiny bit overlooked by the overall community. Plants could be your drug manufacturing in space. And I'm not kidding. This is something that could and has been done before. So we are on our last 10 minutes. And I would like to ask one question, especially because I think we have a lot of students and early career professionals listening. So for those people, for students, very young, excited people that are going to be part of this journey, right? Part of the space journey that we're starting to see again. what skills or experiences would you recommend if they want to work at the interface of science exploration and industry? Joseph, and we start with you.
Okay, I love this question. I mean, I get it also every now and again here in Malta. I think the best part in all this is that to work in space exploration, space science, and everything connected to space, in reality, there can be any discipline, whether you are a medical doctor, a pharmacist, a scientist, an educator, an artist, an engineer, mathematician. So the best part is that whatever the students or people hearing us right now, whatever kind of line of work you are working on, most probably your work or your career can also be of benefit to the space community, to the space scientists. And ultimately, you might find yourself becoming a space, not just enthusiast, but scientist. Taking myself as one example, so my main career and background, as you know, Borja, is biomedical science for the last 16 years. And only in the last 5 years, I managed to understand that on board a space station and working with astronauts, scientists were handling blood samples, doing RNA profiling, testing protein levels, etc., etc. When I realized that there were scientists largely based in the States and also a bit perhaps in Europe as well, but once I understood that this could be done also on human astronauts, and I was doing it on hundreds of samples based on Earth from hospital, from clinic. So they said, okay, so I said, the tools, the methods, the design of experiments that I've been doing for many years in my lab can also be used and exploited on astronaut-based material, astronaut-based samples. And the moment that I sort of knocked on a door or two and asked the question about the kind of science that could be done, asking the right questions on hemoglobin biology and how it varies. I know one particular student hearing us today, Maria Vella, who's doing her PhD in Malta. So it all starts with very simple questions. They could be questions that have an important relevance to Earth, but we can utilize, exploit, and make use of space-flown experiments or space-flown human astronauts. So I think we sometimes say that there is no limit, right? When you look at the space, and I think a good answer to your question is that I think it is also true that there are no real limits unless you put them yourself. Okay, so you self-impose limits. So if you remove the limits and you think of how you can be of benefit to the space community and how space research can be of benefit to your particular science project, science area, I think there's a huge amount of work waiting for everyone.
Wow, what a lovely answer, Joseph.
Thank you, Borja.
And Satoru, similar question to you. And I
Yeah.
know this will be a loaded question because you have been in business and in the sector for quite a bit long time. So what skills or experiences would you recommend if they have to work on the interface of science exploration and industry?
Yeah, first of all, I fully agree with what Joseph said, and also I would suggest first to be an expert of the field you like. So be an expert and you expand your expertise. On top of that, I would recommend to have a wider view for the idea of spirit of interdisciplinary, intercultural, and international. Actually, these are the philosophy of Interspace University. They call 3 I's. Because when I went to the university first time, I was quite astonished about the wide range of knowledge we need to work together. Because there's still a lot of discussion about the legal aspects of the space law is still the growing field. and also culture is the must to bond everybody. So and also no one country or no one expert can really complete the huge industry mission on the moon. So the be expert of whatever you like. So I think we should have some some kind of base or the strengths. But on top of that, we have the sense of interdisciplinary, because unless you have interest in this kind of thing, also it's difficult if you are in a silo. It's difficult to the collaborate together. So interdisciplinary, intercultural, international. These are three keywords of three I's. So I really recommend on top of your expertise.
I like the three eyes. That's easy to remember, Satoru. So we're in the last minutes, and I would like for both of you, Satoru and Joseph, any final remarks that you would like to do. So Satoru, we'll start with you, and please, I don't know if people will have follow-up questions. Maybe you can write in the comments an email that they can maybe ask those questions, or maybe like they can add you on LinkedIn or something like that. But please, in the last minutes, Satoru and Joseph,
I do that.
whatever you would like to share, or any final remarks that you would like to do.
So I just repeat what I said, and also what Joseph said. Everybody has a chance. So Moon is not the place for few, but everyone has a chance, because to create industries, we need a variety of the infrastructures, plant, a factory, or a habitation, whatever. So these all need the different expertise and the different level of collaboration. So please remember that everybody has a chance to have a job on the moon. So I hope, especially listening the audience of the younger generations, please keep in mind. So you have a very, you are living in a very good timing of your life. So because if you are born 20 years ago, nothing, and that was really, things are moving just 4 or 5 years. So you're lucky, and go for it.
Yes,
Love those encouraging words. Joseph, go ahead.
fully agree. I mean, of course, I mean, we hear this all the time, but it is a very exciting time to be living in, right? Maybe just some small takeaway messages, or some personal messages that I can say to the audience or people seeing this webinar, is that from the island of Malta, being such a small country, and we had never sent bioscience missions to ISS before. So you can imagine the very first time that myself and my small team thought about the idea of sending a mission to the ISS, it was met not with resistance, but with a lot of skepticism. Like what exactly is this? Is it really necessary? And unfortunately, this is something possibly also exists elsewhere, right? So I think people working in this space sector and community, there for sure at some point in your career or your life, you will meet with people who will question the need to do science in space. Because why shouldn't you do science on Earth? There's so much for everyone. Uh, but of course, those kind of people then would lack the foresight or the vision of what space science really is all about. First of all, like Satoru said, it brings so much things together from different continents and countries and faiths and cultures. And I mean, just by doing that, it is already an experience of a lifetime for the individual scientist or the person. So it is something that I recommend to anyone. And finally, I mean the idea of not just the wishful thinking, right? But building on the promise of seeing life, not just humans, but life in general, becoming multiplanetary, or also going out of Earth to occupy or to visit other planets and sites. I find the idea very exciting and almost necessary, I would say. Now, because I find that idea necessary, then all of the things that we've been talking about, going to space, ISS, going to the moon, and using that as a stepping stone to go even deeper into space, I mean, all of this is a necessary step. So all of these are important. It will have its own challenges that need to be overcome. I think overcoming these challenges will give you a sense of, how to say, satisfaction in a way, and accomplishment. So it is always a nice factor. And I think being or living. I also appreciate that this might not be for everyone, but for all of those who enjoy living at the very, very edge of Earth, and at the edge of science and excellent science, and very, how to say, exciting kind of work. I think space science, I don't think many other areas of science gives that extra punch to anyone wanting to do this kind of work. That is my message.
I can I can agree to that. Space science, there's nothing like it. Okay, so with these fantastic remarks and very encouraging words from both of our speakers, we're going to wrap up this call. I would like to thank, first of all, Glafki for the logistics of this webinar. I think it has run pretty smoothly. For Giuseppe Rivaldi, the president, for the opening remarks that led into a fantastic discussion today with both of our great speakers. Joseph, Satoru, thank you very much for being here today. As well, I would like to remind that this was the first episode of the webinar series. We will be back with episode 2, and we will be announcing within the next couple of weeks the date exactly for those. Joseph, you will be somebody that you know greatly, in great detail as well, that will be coming into the next webinar. And I would like to say as well that this webinar will be posted online on YouTube. So if you want to rehear all of these fantastic words that our speakers had, you will be more than welcome to do so. So Joseph, Satoru, thank you very much for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Satoru.